So, first of all, we want you to know that we're going to bring this episode to you as quickly as possible. So, it's going to be unrehearsed, unscripted, totally
unprofessional.
Totally raw. And, often when we say we do it unscripted, I'll tell you a secret. We still go back and do at least a little bit of editing. And we're not going to have time to do that today.
No, we're live from the Logansport Library right now, so continuing the trend of recording in library conference rooms. But today was a huge day for the Delphi case.
So we're the Murder Sheet, and this is
Richard Allen.
The Delphi murders.
The Delphi murders, Richard Allen.
Right. So I guess the story for us started a couple of days ago when a source we consider incredibly reliable let us know that an arrest had been made.
Or someone had been detained, something was happening, but we had basically no other information other than that.
No name, no further details. And even though this source, again, has been wonderful for us and is incredibly reliable, it's just one source.
Yeah, we can't run with that necessarily unless we're able to get other people to say, yes, that is the case. And we were not able to do that in this instance. So we sort of felt that the responsible thing to do is, just relax and see what happens, basically.
So that's what we did. Then we're recording this on Friday, October 28th, and it was, I'll be a bit vague here, but this morning we got a phone call confirming the accuracy of the information our source gave us and let us know that there had been an arrest.
So immediately, basically, right then and there, we got dressed and ran up here, ran up to Delphi, because we wanted to be on the ground and figure out what is happening, who has been arrested, what do we know about him. So we've basically been spending the entire day today going around Delphi and its surrounding environs, basically just trying to gather information. So we've just been digging around all day. So that's why it's taken so long to put this up, because we've literally just been in news gathering mode.
And before we talk too much more about the day, I think it's interesting to note that news gathering is a community enterprise. And so there were other local reporters working this, and they'd call us, we'd call them, and we'd exchange information so we could all figure out what was happening so we could share it with the public.
Yeah, it was really heartening to see the fourth estate sort of working together to figure out what's going on. It's not all about competition or getting something first. It's about how can we better inform the community that we all serve. And also members of the community sort of reaching out and saying, here's what I know, here's what I know, here's what I see. I mean, so we were able to connect with, numerous different people today, and I think that's great. I think people are really motivated right now to get answers about this case and ultimately hopefully see justice for Libby and Abby. So
the first thing we did naturally is we raced to the Carroll County Courthouse.
Yes.
Because the stories we heard was that there was some sort of court hearing this morning, allegedly, where this man who was arrested, Richard Allen, faced some sort of charges related to this case.
Yeah, so why don't you explain, as an attorney, Kevin, what normally you would expect to see in terms of a court record in regards to something like this?
Normally, you would expect to see a court record because it's the responsibility of the court to keep accurate documents relating everything that happens in the court. Basically, if someone sneezes in court, there should be a record of it somewhere. And we as taxpayers pay for the operation of the courts. So we're entitled to all that information. And generally, court employees are very, very happy to share that information. And if for some reason, I think we all remember back in August when Kevin Greenlee was temporarily placed in the custody of the Indiana State Police.
Right.
And when that happened, that order was initially sealed. So you couldn't see that order, but you could see a document saying something had been sealed.
Mm-hmm. So there's a trace.
Yes. So our hope was we would see some sort of indication of what happened at this so-called court hearing.
Or at least have some sort of explanation from employees on the ground telling us, oh, here's, maybe there's a glitch in the system. But that's not what happened today.
What happened?
We got stonewalled, along with all the other press who showed up asking for information, which is our right to obtain. So that was bizarre and upsetting. You don't expect this level of kind of secrecy, and it's frankly kind of disturbing because, we can understand that this is a sensitive case, but procedures are there for a reason, and the court system is supposed to operate in the light where people can see it and, be public. So I feel like the First Amendment implications of what happened today were frankly appalling. But yeah.
Everybody we talked to just kept saying,
what the hell is going on?
I was going to say, all the court employees.
Yeah. No, that was all the reporters. All the court employees were basically saying.
All the court employees were saying, look it up on my case. Look it up on my case. And my case is, what is my case?
My case is, of course, Indiana's public, court case, website essentially. And it's
a repository of all public records related to the courts.
Yes. And basically, it's not on there either. So it's nowhere. Nobody knows where it is. It's a lot of finger pointing. And it's just, I don't know. It's.
And the message we kept getting was more information is going to be released on Monday morning, October 31st at 10 a.m. at a press conference at the church in Delphi.
Which, can I just add, we're very happy that something is happening. So I'm overjoyed, frankly, that we may be getting that much closer to answers for Abby and Libby's families, for their friends, for their loved ones, and for the community of Delphi, and frankly, other communities that, care about this whole thing. But at the same time, we don't understand the decision to kind of basically have it come out on a Friday and then wait a weekend and do it on a Monday. That seems a little, in a case this high profile, it seems a little bit unusual to have that sort of delay time.
As I recall, they did something similar with their New Direction press conference.
Yeah, they did.
I seem to recall that the announcement of that came out on a Friday, and the actual press conference was on a Monday. You could argue that this is because maybe they know there's national press interest, so they want to give the national press an opportunity to...
I can understand that, and I can understand also wanting to make sure this is really prepared and we give everybody involved a lot of time to prepare. So I'm sympathetic to that, but I also feel like sometimes when you do this, you just kind of invite rampant speculation, and there becomes a bit unmanageable for some of the people involved. And I think, hopefully that won't happen, but let's be clear. There's
probably going to be a lot of speculation over the next couple of days, but the difference is that hopefully on Monday we'll get some pretty clear answers.
I'm really hopeful.
Which will put a damper on that speculation.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. This, to be clear, we have been covering this case extensively since in terms of getting scoops, late 2021 and early 2022 is kind of when we really got into it, and we did not see this coming at all. This is not a name, Richard Allen, that we are familiar with. So we want to be very candid about that and say, this was not the next guy on our notebook that we were going to get to later. This is just, this is astounding. And it's a bit of a shocker because basically we've been able to kind of document over time how the case has developed. So you have Kevin Greenlee first coming on the radar in 2017, and then immediately after, the month after the murders, March of 2017, you have Ron Logan, who really becomes a suspect, and a search warrant is served, and we documented that. Then later on in 2020, it's like it pivots back to Kevin Greenlee and people around him. But now here in what month is it? October 2022, you have this Richard Allen coming up. And so the question that I think a lot of people have, and that we certainly have and have no information on whatsoever, so we're trying to dig, are there any connections between Mr. Allen and folks like Ron Logan or folks like Kevin Greenlee? Is there anything? Or is this just a completely new avenue? Is he believed to have worked alone? Is he considered the main suspect for like the actual killer or perceived to be more of an accomplice? We don't know. And it's not clear at this point.
Yeah, we don't even know if this is the only arrest that police expect to make in this case. In fact, there have been hints that maybe it isn't, but hopefully we will find out some more answers on Monday morning.
Yeah, I feel like we'll know for sure on Monday morning, or at least have a more of a sense of like, is there more investigation that needs to be done, or are we good and we can head for a trial or some sort of a plea with this person?
Yeah, hopefully also on Monday morning, the court documents will be released. We can all read, hopefully, probable cause affidavit, which will lay out the case against Mr. Allen and will explain why the police and the prosecutors decided to proceed against him. Hopefully, I would also hope that maybe some of these documents will reveal who is representing Mr. Allen at trial.
Now, can we speak maybe a little bit vaguely about some things that we understand regarding behind-the-scenes things around this development?
Yes.
And namely that this seems to be sort of a surprising development all around. I don't necessarily get the sense that this was necessarily in the works for a long time, but that's just my perception.
Yeah, someone behind the scenes said it was a bit of a twist.
Yeah. So, I mean, to give you a sense, if it's a twist for the public and the media, that's maybe kind of sums it up for everybody, frankly. Although we don't know at this point, was Richard Allen on the radar soon after the murders? Is this the first time investigators are hearing about him? We don't know. And that would be very interesting to know, because if this is somebody who perhaps was looked at early on and maybe cleared, or they didn't have enough on him, and he's been kind of in the background for a long time, that would just be another indication that oftentimes behind the scenes look at an investigation is going to be very different than what the public is perceiving if investigators are keeping things close to the vest.
Yes.
So what else can we talk about?
Let's take a moment to, I believe our next stop after the courthouse is we went to CVS.
Yes.
We've all heard that there have been reports that Mr. Allen either was currently employed by the CVS or was recently employed by the CVS.
And that's the CVS store in Delphi.
Yeah, that's the information we had. So we naturally, let's go to the source. Let's see if there's people at the CVS who can tell us about Richard Allen.
And unfortunately, we did find people there, but they would not tell us about Richard Allen. They seemed to be, I would say, they gave the perception that they were expecting us, or that they're expecting reporters, because usually when you say, hey, did this guy work here? People are kind of like caught off guard and like, what? What do you want to know? But in this case, they were very much like, we cannot comment on that. Very polite.
Good day.
Good afternoon, sir. Very polite, very firm, very immediate. So, make of that what you will. But, I think that's interesting. And so we weren't able to officially confirm if he worked at the CVS, but that is what the, rumor mill has.
So our next stop after the CVS was the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. And the reason why we went to the Sheriff's Department is because that is where the Carroll County Jail is. What happened at the Sheriff's Department, Áine?
So we were essentially the last reporters allowed in the door. We showed up there, we kind of walked into this building, and we're looking around. This is the Sheriff's Office / jail, and this is the Sheriff's Office / jail, and so we basically looked around and found an employee. They asked what we wanted, and we told them that we wanted to, inquire after a possible inmate who was either currently incarcerated there or had been incarcerated there earlier, and basically asked them, is Richard Allen, like, what's the deal with that? And they said we couldn't ask them, essentially, that we could ask Tobles and be the sheriff of Carroll County, and that he was going to be away this week. And then we kind of were like, okay, and so. Then
they showed us the door.
Yep.
We left, and almost immediately another reporter arrived.
Several other reporters.
And they weren't even allowed in.
They were met at the door. So Again, kind of the stonewalling. We understand it. It's people's jobs, but it's a little bit ominous.
So after that, we went to Mr. Allen's house.
We did. We obtained his address and went there to see if we could find a family member or somebody who would be willing to provide comment and give some context about who this guy is and why he's being looked at. We knocked on the door. The doorbell seemed to have been ripped off.
There's like loose wires?
Loose wires, so that's kind of odd.
Why don't you describe the house?
Very nice house in my opinion. It was just sort of a, well-manicured lawn, little decorations. So it seemed to be a very well-kept house in a kind of a nice and quiet neighborhood. So I thought it was a very nice property. So, that, of course, when you're talking about a case like this, it's not all about, aesthetics, right? It's just, it just looked like a normal house that you might see anywhere in suburbia, essentially. That was my perception.
While we were there, we knocked on the door and no one answered. But we thought we heard some voices from the backyard. And so we went in the backyard because we thought there was somebody back there. And we're telling you that because it becomes relevant because of why.
Basically, there's rumors that the backyard was dug up or that the fire pit was searched. So when we were back there, we didn't see extensive evidence of that. The fire pit was covered in leaves that looked like they'd been there for a little bit.
There was a patch of dirt near the side of the house, but only a small part of it looked like it had been disturbed. It almost looked like a garden or something.
Yeah, so we didn't see any evidence of that. That doesn't mean that didn't happen.
Right, and we it's not like we spent a lot of time there examining.
No, we weren't looking around.
We went back there. We thought we heard somebody that wasn't, so we got back in our car.
We didn't want to trespass, so we got out of there, basically.
We knocked on
to be clear, we went in the morning, but then the time we thought we heard someone in the backyard was in the afternoon.
Yeah, we came back.
We came back to try again.
We also knocked on some doors in the neighborhood. Nobody wanted to talk. At one point, we saw some people standing in their driveway. They made it very clear they didn't want to talk to us. And as we were walking around the neighborhood, we saw a group of reporters who were standing, talking to a person in a parked car. And this car was, I shouldn't say parked, it was a stopped car in the middle of the road. And it turned out it was a sheriff's car. And the reason they were talking to him was not to get information about this case. The reason they were talking to him was somebody in the neighborhood said there's a bunch of reporters sniffing around in the neighborhood, come get rid of them. So in other words, somebody in the neighborhood that Richard Allen lives in called the police to get rid of the reporters.
So that kind of gives you a sense of some of the reception. I would say that in this case, it's understandable that people feel pretty burned out by national media attention, but also, reporters are just here trying to do their jobs and inform the community. So you don't have to call the cops. You could just decline to comment in fairness.
Yeah, reporters are just like anybody else. And if you say, I don't want to talk to you, reporters are just going to walk away. And in fact, one of the houses in this neighborhood had a sign up saying this is a daycare. We have kids here. So please, reporters, don't knock.
Yeah, we turned around the second we saw that.
And no other reporters knocked on that door, too.
No, if you make your preferences clear, most reporters, I would say, will respect that. We don't want to go up and get yelled at. We're like people just like you. So that's a good technique if you're trying to not get bothered. Just kind of, put up a little sign. But if you're willing to talk, then that's also helpful. And you can, if you're worried about, you don't want your face going out there, you can say, I want to talk off the record. So there's ways to kind of do it in a way that works for everybody.
And in fairness, not everyone in the neighborhood was standoffish. As we stood there talking with these reporters, because we talked with them even after the sheriff's deputy left, as we talked to these reporters, a couple of people who lived in the general vicinity came over and said, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, they didn't have much information on Richard Allen. They basically indicated that they were not really familiar with him or his family, that they did not know the people who lived in that house. So they didn't have a lot of information, but they were certainly curious about what the reporters knew and were trying to sort of, get informed as well, as people who want to know what's going on in their community. So from there, we took a bit of a detour, I would say.
Yes, from there we went to Mexico.
Not the country.
It's the section of Indiana is interesting because there's a Peru, Indiana that we spent a lot of time talking about. There's also a Mexico, Indiana.
And a Kokomo, so it's different. But we went to Mexico.
We went to Mexico because we had some information that Richard Allen's parents lived there. Mm-hmm. And we got their address.
We did. And we showed up. We saw...
How would you describe the house?
It was just a brick house, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Nondescript.
The garage door of this house was open.
There was a kind of a burn mark in the front, which I'm pretty sure was just burned leaves. So I don't think that had anything to do with the case. So I'm saying that, we don't have to jump to, conclusions.
So we knock on the front door of the Allen residence. No one answers. We see that there's somebody nearby looking curious about what we're doing. So we go over and talk to this person. This person doesn't have much information.
Doesn't know the family's son.
Just knows Mr. Allen.
Very
Sr.
surprised that they would be involved in anything.
Yeah, he just knows Mr. Allen Sr. is somebody that you say hello to in the neighborhood. I think we all have people like that in the areas we live in. And they say, oh, by the way, here he is now. And Mr. Allen's father was driving down the street, and he turned into a driveway at the back of the house. And so we decided, let's just go and approach him and see if he would talk to us.
So we identified ourselves as reporters.
He was getting out of his car.
Yes, and we stood back. But we identified ourselves as reporters, as we do when we're talking to people, because we're not trying to sneak up on you.
As soon as we started talking to him, we said, Mr. Allen. He turns, he looks at us, he makes eye contact. As soon as we say we're reporters, he breaks eye contact. And what does he do then?
He glided away down the driveway into the back door of his house. And it was very ominous. Oftentimes, as we mentioned, the neighbors in Delphi were very clear, oh, you're reporters, we don't want to talk to you. And okay, that's totally fine, that's your right, and we're backing off. Usually people talk to you. This guy didn't talk at all. He just he didn't run, but he power walked. He glided away. And so kind of seemed like a deer in the headlights moment. I almost kind of felt a little bad because obviously this is probably not a person used to dealing with the press.
And also this is a person we were perhaps the first members of the press or the public to approach him to ask questions about his son. And we will be far from the last.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I think the quiet, anonymous life this man has known is likely going to be changed forever because he's now the father of the man arrested in the Delphi murders.
Yeah, it's kind of a chilling moment on a number of levels, frankly. Just yeah. But anyways, so then where do we go after that? I don't even remember. It's a blur today.
It's been quite a day. I believe after that we went back to Delphi.
Yeah, we went back to Delphi. We kind of have just been running around trying to talk to as many people as possible. We can't talk about everything around that, so try to be careful here. But I guess, what are our thoughts on Richard Allen, and what does this mean for the case? I think a lot of folks who are following this are going to be excited that maybe answers are forthcoming, but I think they're going to be dismayed because it's who is this guy? Did anyone have this name on their list? If you did, email MurderSheet@gmail.com and tell us why, if this is something that came up for you in the past. And also, if you work at that CVS, also give us a tip. Or if you know anything about this, shoot us an email.
If you know anything about Richard Allen, please email us.
Yeah, please email us.
I think the next few days are going to be full of a lot of speculation.
And possibly news.
I think people out there very much... Everybody has their favorite suspect. So I think there's going to be people out there trying to...
Make their suspect fit into it?
Yes, trying to figure out, is there a possible connection between Richard Allen and Ron Logan? Is there a connection between Richard Allen and the Kleins? Is there a connection between Richard Allen and person X or person Y? I mean, there's going to be a lot of talk like that.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that because I mean we just don't know. We don't have any obvious connections between Logan or Klein or any of these guys. So I think what we're gonna do is, if there is a connection that we can report on that is confirmed, we'd love to get that, regardless of who it is. But if it's, we're not going to engage in speculation because we don't know. This guy very well could be considered a sole perpetrator who was just overlooked, and new evidence has come forward in a way that makes a really strong case for him being the killer. And we all have to be, okay with or possibly accepting of that if that is what the evidence it bears out.
Exactly. And at this point, we don't even know what the police believe they can prove. We don't even know if the police believe he is the killer or just an accomplice.
And we're not going to talk about anything. A lot of very helpful and wonderful people have sent us things like Facebook screenshots and photos, and we appreciate that. And
it's very interesting.
It's very helpful, and there's some very interesting things.
So please keep send
them away. We love that, but also we're not going to talk about it in this episode, not because we don't think it's interesting or that we don't think it's relevant, but because we haven't been able to literally get on the internet today because we've just been driving around, and we basically want to be able to sit down and look at everything and kind of just see what we're looking at before we report on it, if that makes sense. So
we don't want to report on anything until we're 100% sure.
Especially since Rick Allen is a common name, and we don't want to accidentally be citing something from the wrong Rick Allen's Facebook page or something like that.
Yes, if he had a name like Áine Cain is a very unusual name.
I can't do anything because people will immediately, know. But I mean, in all seriousness, Rick Allen,
I think even in a town as small as Delphi, didn't we find 3 or 4 people named Richard or Rick Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we Facebook messaged some of their contacts, and they were basically like, no, I just saw him, get out of here. And we were like, sorry, that's, we just don't want to get anything wrong in that sense. But I think, how do you feel emotionally about this development?
I really hope that this case comes to a resolution.
Yes.
I really want there to be, I don't know what the word closure means, but I hope that the families in this case get whatever answers they need. And deserve.
I've felt such sadness and heaviness reporting this case because it's just so awful what happened to these girls and what their families and what the community has endured ever since. But when I saw, and we speak with the family, but when I saw Becky and Kelsey posting today is the day, I just felt such hope. And I'm really hopeful that something will happen here. But of course, Richard Allen right now he's innocent until proven guilty. So is everyone in this case. And ultimately what will bring about answers is not the arrest alone. It's the arrest followed by a trial and a conviction. I feel that point, things change.
Yes.
Substantively. Because unfortunately, as we've seen with this case, there are ups and downs. Although I imagine that given how high profile this is, and this is speculation, given how high profile this is, I have to imagine that the authorities involved and law enforcement would not take the gigantic step of arresting somebody and basically confirming a link to Delphi without really looking at it first. With Kevin Klein, there was the link to Delphi. They put that out there. Wish TV broke the story. We followed up and got some reports. But ultimately, he's being tried for child sexual abuse materials. He's not being tried for Delphi. So if we have a real honest-to-goodness trial for the crime of killing Abby and Libby, that's going to mean something. I would have to think that police felt like they could take that step because they have something concrete. But we don't know yet, but we're trying to find out.
And hopefully the next time we talk with you, we will have more answers. We certainly plan to attend the press conference on Monday.
Yeah, we're going, and I'm sure a lot of people will be there. And, it's one of those things, we kind of debated, do we want to get on the air a little bit sooner and talk to the audience sooner? But we kind of felt like, listen, we're never going to beat national and local news for the most part. This is what they do. There's excellent reporters out there. They're sourced up to the gills, and they're running this down. Hopefully what we can do going forward is, provide some color, context, maybe get some news that we can bring you as we kind of suss this out. But, stay tuned, because we're going to be very much on this story for the time being. And thank you so much for listening, I guess. We really appreciate all you guys. Appreciate everyone who sent in tips and suggestions and kind notes to us. And, let's all just really, keep Abby and Libby and their families in your thoughts right now.